Okay, we're live. Hi, my name's Tim, and welcome to I Love Being Sober. I love being sober. I love it, and I'm here with Emily Sadler. Emily loves being sober as well. I'm sure she's going to share that with you. And today, I'm here with Emily Sadler of ETC by Emily. And Emily and I go way back. I remember when I first got sober. I think Emily, you were 2 or 3 years sober. We used to go to Prince of Peace 3 or 4 days a week, and you sat at the same table with the same women every single day. And I think I sat at pretty much the same table. And it's been just so amazing to see where you were to where you are today. And you started ETC by Emily. And the title of the show today is From Addiction to Bright, Shiny, and Happy, which the slogan of ETC by Emily includes bright, shiny, and happy people, which is awesome. And I can't wait to talk about that and how your life has transformed. And first, Emily, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me. I never really know where to look in this, but yeah, thanks for having me. And I'm excited to be here. I've definitely seen your company grow and expand, and I think that's one of the neatest parts of recovery is watching people come in just freaking wrecked, and then over the years get like better and shinier and happier and build a life for themselves.
Right.
You know, I get to see that on the 𝐒𝐻 team all the time. Like people come in just not okay, and then a year later they're like enrolled in school and
and married and kids and buying houses. And yeah, I mean, so we're both similar in the sense that we get to work with people that are early on in recovery, like really early on, like they just got sober, right? And they're wrecked and they're down at their bottom and they've got a long, long way to go, which can be discouraging. And I think you probably were there when I got my 30-day chip and my 60-day chip and my 90-day chip, because you were already 2 or 3 years sober. And then the business that I'm in, same thing. You know, we see people that are just completely wrecked. And so first today, I'd like to talk a little bit about your story. So let's tell me. So where did you grow up, Emily?
I grew up in Seattle, Washington.
Okay.
And I moved to Arizona about 27 years ago. Yeah, and like my alcoholism was alive when I was a teenager. I don't know about yours, but it didn't just sneak on me. Like I was just that kid full of potential, but just running amok all the time.
Right.
So yeah, then
Okay. So when did you? So you started drinking when you were young?
I did.
Like how old?
Like 13, 14.
Okay. When did you know it was a problem?
I knew, I don't like to put it this way, but in lack of a better way to put it, I knew I was a problem very early on. Like I was born that little girl, super irritable, restless, discontent. Like I always put like that. Now I know that irritable, restless, and discontent little girl was just a really, really sensitive young lady who loved people to agree that was uncomfortable. But, you know, I had like normal parents that didn't know, like this little Indio girl, like loves people and it's uncomfortable. And she literally cannot stand living in her own skin because she worries about people so much. And so it actually was like a lovely thing, but without guidance, you know, like now all of most of the generation of children coming in aren't taught to sweep their emotions under the carpet, shove them down and not speak about them. Right. They're taught to like,
right,
process their emotions and feelings, and I just don't think that like our age group was taught that, and so we were just walking around with stuffed down emotions. Like who's not going to get shit canned, right? Like people are gonna do something to take away those feelings.
right.
So I always knew. Then I put alcohol in my body, and I triggered a family disease that has been around since the beginning of time in my family.
Right.
So two kind of, you know.
Yeah. So I mean, what I'm hearing you say is that the drinking was a solution.
Right.
It was a solution to all the feelings that you didn't want to deal with. and it's the easier, softer way, right? The easier, softer way is just to have a drink.
Right.
And so alcohol is your drug of choice. Anything else?
So I always promise, and like I've had a blog and talked about recovery at a pretty public level, and I always promised myself I would never like get on a stage or a podcast or a television show and not tell the truth about recovery being hard, right? Like I love the name of your podcast, which is I Love Being Sober, and I do, but I'm also never going to bullshit anybody. It's no joke,
Right.
Like if you're honest, like I always want to be like, I never want to be the old timer who's like, yeah. So, you know what I mean? Like I got sober and I look at my life. No, like I got sober. I worked my ass off. I still struggle. I still feel, I still cope, and I still grow. And, so any other things like, well, did my fair share of drugs, right? But in recovery, I still find myself picking up things to take away my feelings and emotions, like sugar or shopping or whatever. Because sitting still and leaning into the pain and growing through it, though I do it because I know that it's what I need to do to stay sober, I'm still a human being that isn't like, yes, feelings, let's process it.
Right.
Let's eat a cookie and I'll process it in a minute. So I just like to be honest with the newcomers, that the old timers or people with time, like we still understand how they feel. It's just not attached to wanting a drink or wanting a drug necessarily. It's more so like not wanting to feel our feelings.
Right.
We have solutions because we have 12 steps, but I no longer attach my feelings and emotions to wanting a drink. But I there's still a part of me that's like, how can I?
Well, yeah, it's the solution. Like it's the easier, softer way is to pick up your phone and look at Facebook, look at Instagram, go on to Amazon Prime, go shopping, eat a cookie, eat 10 cookies.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like go exercise for 3 hours. I mean, it's like these are all ways that we can take our mind away from the feelings and the issues and the things that we have to deal with, which is why there's lots of ways to address and work through those feelings, but we have to work through them.
Right.
Eventually.
Yeah. And I know that you probably found that like, I'm not willing to sit in discomfort as long as I was in the beginning, or even in my first 10 years of recovery. Like I'd sit in the mud for a while before I'd like pick up the phone or work a step or like, phone a friend. I'd sit in it for a while, and now it's just not, that just doesn't work for me anymore. So like jumping into the solution way sooner than I used to. And it's the same recipe. The recipe for my recovery hasn't changed. It's the same thing. Like when I'm in the mud, you know what I mean? It's because I'm trying to control something like the 12 steps did say.
Right. Because I want to be in control. I want things to happen the way that I want them to happen. And I know that acceptance is the answer to all my problems, right? It's like if I'm trying to control this election, like all I'm going to do is create anxiety, fear, restlessness, irritability.
Yeah, like even eating, and you'll hear me reference eating because sugar is I can't eat sugar, and there's no like, oh, maybe I can just have one, like but the delusion of me being able to eat one, like I'm trying to control my feelings by eating one, and the delusion that I can then control it is the same exact thing as my drink.
Right.
So I'll do it with other things.
So why did you decide to get sober?
Don't go to jail for it.
What happened?
Sober. I at the time, well, I still have two sons, but at the time they were younger, and being a good mom was really, really important to me, and I know that it's important to most parents, right? But my alcoholism was starting to affect that part of my life, and like my kids are the most important thing to me, but alcohol was winning. Like they were not coming first, and so and I knew that it was getting bad, and then some things started happening. Like I got put in I got institutionalized, not rehab, but like institutionalized because I was losing my mind, like alcoholic insanity and DT tremors and all that. And I knew nothing about alcoholism, and I knew, besides my family has a history of it, and nothing about the 12 steps. I just knew I was losing my mind. And so I got out of that, and then I got a DUI one night, and in my head, like I'd already gotten a first DUI, and just my thought process was, if you get another one, you're gonna freaking lose your kids. And I don't know if that was true or not, but I know that was the moment that God could speak to me clear enough to be like, hey, this party's over. Like, you're done. You're gonna drive drunk again. And I did. I got that DUI and I drove drunk again, and like the denial was off the table for me. I knew that if I didn't stop, that, I was gonna keep on going. It was gonna hurt someone and lose my kids, and it just became unacceptable. So
now, were you okay? So, the father of your two boys now, were you married? Were you not married? What happened there?
We're online right now, right?
Yes, we're online.
Okay. He lived down the street. We were divorced. And he for sure stepped in. We had joint custody all of the boys' life, and he for sure stepped in during that time. And luckily, he wasn't that guy who was like vengeful, nor did he want full custody of our kids. But he didn't go after my jugular, because normally women lose their kids, right? Like, he had every right to throw a CPS case on my lap, and it would have killed me. So when women come into the program and they've lost their children, and I say, I can't even imagine, I love you, and like, let's stay sober and get through this, I mean that. Like, I feel their pain, and by the grace of God, he did not do that to me. But could have happened, Did
you lose that relationship because of your alcoholism?
Maybe some of it. Some of it, my like really bad alcoholism didn't really take off until after I got divorced. Again, I was like born irritable, restless, discontent, and with like zero coping skills. So that's not great in a marriage. And as much as he's a wonderful man, he was not my match. So we would have ended up getting divorced anyway, but like, it didn't help. I had no like communication skills.
Yeah. Okay, so what was the final? So you talked about the DUI. Was the DUI, was that like one day? Did you finally, like, did you try to get sober a couple of times, or was it just one time you knew that you had to pull it together if you wanted to keep your kids, and if you wanted
to? I didn't really know what sober meant. I didn't know what sober meant. I didn't know very much about alcoholism. I knew nothing about Alcoholics Anonymous. As much trouble as I had been in, I had never been in a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. So yes, that moment clicked, and I figured out, hey, I'm going to drive drunk again, and it's unacceptable to me. And you've heard my story where I walked down the street, and there was an old timer on my street, and I knocked on her door, and I was like, I need help. And she listened to me, and there was no babying or any of that. She just said, I'll pick you up in the morning, and if you're ready to get sober, I'll show you how to do it. And she took me to AA, and she sat me next to her for like a year. And I did the deal, and I know that that's not everybody's story, but that's why when I speak, I don't have any right to like come to talk about recovery in any sort of pedestal or in any sort of soapbox. Like, I came in wrecked. I got hand walked into Alcoholics Anonymous by an old timer. She sat me next to her, and she like loved me through the process. And I know that like my job in life now is to do the same thing for whoever. Like, really, that's what 𝐶etera is. It looks like a staffing agency, but it, like, people come in and they just can't imagine getting their lives back, or their kids back, or their ankle monitor off their ankle, and to be able to say, I'm going to give you a job and love you, and like, this team's going to be there for you, and if you need a ride, ask, and if you can't, like, God, people just need a flip and break and some love. And so because I got so much of that, I'm able to like give it back, right?
Yeah.
That's how we do.
Okay, so were you living in Phoenix when you got sober?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And how long after you got sober did you start ETC by Emily?
6 years. 7 years.
Okay. So tell me, why did you start ETC by Emily? I want to hear this story.
So first, let's go back just a little bit. So because I was running amok when I was younger, I didn't do the things like graduate from high school or learn how to communicate or I didn't have a lot going for me, right? Like that person that's like, well, you know, she's a good mom. And up until my drinking took me out of that, I really was a good mom, and it was enough for me. Like being the PTO, whatever, like I loved it.
Yeah.
But my earning potential wasn't great. And my alcoholism made it so I had done some damage to my brain, right? Like when we come in, we're like smushy brains. So I couldn't do things like run a cash register and remember how to make coffee drinks at the coffee shop I worked at. And it was not looking good for me. And I saw a story where I remember my sponsor being like, honey, it's going to take a miracle for you to be self-supporting. I was like, that is so rude. But now she's like, told you so, look at you.
Yeah.
And so I really wasn't employable. I wasn't. I was just like broken to the core. I went to a meeting in the morning, took a nap, went to Prince of Peace in the afternoon. Like I was a little broken baby bird. And then I got an opportunity to be a caterer. And I did that and I liked it. And I kind of got back on my feet and I made some connections. And when you're in recovery, you don't screw people over, right? So like when that company went bankrupt, and so then I found myself like, oh my gosh, I don't have a job. I'm back in a situation where I can't, like, here we go again, you know? And I did what we do, which is go back to the basics, right? Like go back to your recovery, call your sponsor, go to meetings, help other people. Don't so much worry about like the job part, just stay sober. And I did that. And then 𝐒𝐤 was actually a drunken conversation on a patio years before. And so I couldn't find a job. And I know that like when you can't find something, not to like knock doors down. So I just paused. And then I made a little card on Vistaprint that said 𝐒𝐤 by Emily. And I was like, I'm just going to run errands. And I did that for a minute. And then a company was like, hey, do you have 2 people? And do you have 3 people? And then like even your company's used us for concierge services.
Yep.
So for a while it was that. And then we figured out that like every business needs like some help, needs some sort of staff. A lot of them, it's not time for them to bring on a full-time person. So we did a lot of that in the beginning. And you know Lexi, so Lexi did a spin-off company called Virtual by Lexi. So she does that. She does that now. Yep. And 𝐒𝐤 went on to staff events. And so we went from like 1 person to 2 people to 3 people to 50 people to 900 in a database within, we're 6 years, 7 years old now.
Wow.
You know, the majority of them are in recovery.
Okay.
Weird.
So it's so awesome. And okay, so I lost my question. You talk about the push of faith versus the leap of faith.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
I wouldn't say that it took a lot of bravery to do what I did. Like no doors were opening, right? And so I knew that was God being like, we're going to shove you off this mountain and you're going to get some wings on the way down. Like that leap to me, that sounds like I had some courage. No, you know what I mean? God was like,
No, I know what you mean.
God was saying, like, you've got some things to do. So I'm going to shove you up this mountain. You're going to learn that you can do it. Stay out of the outcome was a big thing that made 𝐒𝐤 what it is today. Like I really was like, you know, like the girl with nothing to lose is a very powerful person. Like it makes me very powerful because I don't have anything to lose because I don't have an attachment to the outcome of this. As long as it's helping other people, I can like kind of like have a plan for it. But right now we have a team in rural Wisconsin on a military base. I certainly didn't plan that. So
right.
Stay out of the outcome and
well,
it's
kind of like burn the bridge, right? I mean, that's the same thing for you. Like you had to make it work. And there's something to be said about that when someone's in that predicament where they have to make it. I mean, there's a lot of pressure. I mean, you had 2 boys to take care of. You didn't have a job. To your point, you didn't have your education was lacking. So you had to figure it out, and you did.
Yeah, and as you know, like I have an entrepreneurial friend right now, and he just started a business, and he's kicking ass. And you know, in the beginning, it's super overwhelming, right? Because you're growing, and you don't have help, and It's like the only way that you could ever fail is by giving up. Like, just keep going. Just keep going. When you're starting a new business, be willing for it to become what it's meant to become, but don't throw in the towel, because it's hard, as you know. Starting a business is no joke.
Yeah, don't throw in the towel. And I would say, like, with the pandemic, like that was a perfect example of, it's just like, okay, what are we going to do differently? What do we need to clean up? How can we continue moving forward and continue providing service and helping people? Because we're both in the business of helping people.
Yeah. And I don't know about you, but mine came to a pretty dead halt. I'm in the event industry. So like when they said no events over 50, we were like, okay, we just lost our spring season. And so I just had to be like, you know what? We've always been fine. Bills have always gotten paid, but it is why we're in a truck stop in rural Wisconsin. Because when that opportunity came in, I was like, what? All right.
Yeah. Yeah. Turn it over. Right.
Yeah.
And so today, now why would you say that your company grew? I mean, you said you have over 900 people on your roster now. And I think it's been even higher than that, right?
Yeah. Like we have like 300 active. Like I found 300 active in each city is like what can be handled.
Mm-hmm. And you're in Las Vegas, Phoenix, Wisconsin.
That's it right now.
Okay.
Those are the 3 teams.
Right. Okay. So, what would you say is, so I have my opinion on this, and I'm sure you have your opinion on this. What is the importance of a person early in recovery having a job or some other purpose, even if they have family that can take care of them financially? Is it important for a person to have a job or some sort of a purpose while they're early in recovery?
Yes. So not everybody on the 𝐶𝐸 team, but myself and a lot of people on the 𝐶𝐸 team are not doing well when they come in. Like, there's people that are like their career's solid and they're like doing okay. But that's not the demographic of people that normally sit across the table at the coffee shop for me, right? And so in order to stay out of depression, so that's what I would say why that is important. So like earning some money, so you have like some pocket money and some money to pay for your sober living is really important. But because it's so easy to fall into a funk, because there are so many feelings and emotions, it's too easy to fall into a depression. And so if you're not up and about and doing things at least some part of the day, I've just seen people go too far down. So that's why I feel that it's important, and a sense of accomplishment, but like sobriety is an accomplishment at the beginning. Like you got 24 hours, strong work, go take a nap. So I know that like our theories on that are different, and that's okay.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of like go to a meeting and take a nap and do a little work.
Right. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to go out and get a new career necessarily. Right. You don't need to go out and get that. I mean, because I've seen this before where people are like, I need to go, no, that job's not good enough for me. I mean, I can't, I know I can't string together 30 days, but I need a high, I'm highly intelligent. I'm educated. I've made a ton of money before, and this job's not good enough for me. Yeah. And I've seen that, and I don't know, and you've probably seen that. And it's like, no, you just need a job.
Yeah. And to be humble. Like a lot of that, like, you know what I'm saying? Like it's a lot of people come across the 𝐶𝐸 line, and I'm like, I think they might just be here to like learn to be humble, learn to wash a dish, and that's okay. And, like your point in the beginning of recovery is to like not die. So if you're shooting for something bigger, that's awesome. But like, let's stabilize, and stay alive long enough for cool stuff to happen. And so Like I'm always like, easy does it. Just chill. Takes a minute.
It takes a minute. I mean, I have my experience with that. I mean, I drove for Uber. I mean, it was like the best thing I ever did. I mean, I drove for Uber while I started Camelback Recovery. I was going to school. I was getting my master's. I was doing admissions. I was the house manager, and I was driving for Uber. And it was like the driving for Uber was the best thing ever because you don't really have to think very much. I mean, you're just like driving around with people. And some of them, yeah, and some of them needed help.
That's a good example of why we stay sober sometimes when we run across people who aren't.
Oh.
When I run across people that are intoxicated, I'm like, oh, damn. Like,
yeah, it's like that's really unattractive.
Yeah.
It's really unattractive, unappealing, not desirable. I'm glad that's not me.
Yeah, for sure.
Tell me about the coffee shop. Tell me about your Wednesday coffee shop meetings. What happens? How did that come about? Why did you start doing the coffee shop meetings? And
so like literally magic happens at the coffee shop. It's why I stay in this even on days it's frustrating, even on days I don't make any money, because I get to see like direct connections come in where I'm like, oh my God, like had that not happened that day and them not met at that moment, that person wouldn't be changing the world or whatever. And so like seriously, like random cool miracles happen on Wednesdays. But we decided to meet at a coffee shop because one, we needed to meet the team in person. I would say 90% of the Etc. team has met me. And we do that one because like I love them and I care about them and I want to know them no matter how big we get. And two, I want to make sure that their hair is not purple. Right. And so there's a few reasons why. Like I want to see your eyes. I want to see that you're okay. And a lot of times the team, even if they didn't relapse, like I just can tell something's wrong with them. And if I can pull them aside and like talk about it, even if it's for 5 minutes and they know that like they're cared about, then it just gives us all an opportunity to see each other and love each other. It's also where they get paid, which gives everybody motivation to come to the coffee shop. And we do interviews on the same day. So who needs an office, right? It's 2020. That's
true.
What we use the coffee shop for.
Yeah, that's true.
It's fun. You should come in sometime and say hi.
I will. I'll put it on my schedule. I'd love to come by. I'm sure a lot of magic happens at that coffee shop. I mean, it's like, I know, we see some people that are early in recovery, and there's a lot that happens both for me and for the people that I'm sitting across from.
Yeah. A lot of like, holy crap moments.
Now, would you consider the work would you consider that service work?
I feel like my whole point of being service work, like I'm making money. So service work in the idea of the 12-step programs, absolutely not.
Right.
With that being said, I am on this planet to be of service. And I know like everybody has their thing, right? But I know between God and I that is the only reason I'm here. That's it. Like go be of service in whatever capacity. And so service, but it's I also make money off it. So the way that I balance that out is the second that money comes before service, the party's over. And I say it all the time. Our primary purpose is to help other people, and et cetera. And if we get off balance with that, God usually pops me in line, but it's unacceptable to me. Money cannot come first.
Right. Well, it's to your point, it's helping other people being, and so I kind of think about that in my business as well. It's like, we're here to help people. We're also making money, but we've got to make decisions and do the next, just call it the next right thing. Right. Doing the next right thing.
If I don't do the business part of my business, then there will be no work for me to cut the paychecks to be of service to people, right? And so sometimes when I have to make a business decision that like is the best for the whole, I have to remind myself of that. Like what makes Etc. of service, yes, is the love and the family and all of that, but the fact that I cut continual paychecks every Wednesday is also helpful. So to remember, I still have to sell and I still have to do business-like stuff.
Right, right. It's you know, a successful business is happy customers, happy clients, and you make a profit. You have to make money if you want to pay your employees and pay your bills and stay in business.
Yeah. There's and you probably know of something, but I was thought that there should be like a networking group and a support group for people in recovery in the recovery industry, because it can get mucky. I've seen a lot of people lose their recovery because they put recovery work outside of the rooms before their recovery. It's a fast way to relapse.
Oh, I see that. I mean, working in the treatment industry is, I see it all the time. I mean, I've had house managers that have said, well, you know, I'm of service all day long. And it's like, no, doing your job is not being of service. Doing your job is not working in a 12-step program. Working a 12-step program means you have a sponsor, you're working the steps, you're going to meetings, you have sponsees that you're working with, you're taking people through the steps, you're doing 12-step work. And that doesn't have anything to do with being a house manager or being or working in the industry. I see it all the time. And you see people that are burned out, like other treatment professionals, not even house managers. I'm talking just people that work at treatment centers and so forth. It's, you know, the burnout rate is really high. And if people don't take care of themselves.
So a lot of times people from the 𝐒𝐶 team go to work in recovery, because that's like the next step, right? 𝐒𝐶 is, as you know, on-call work. It's not consistent. There's no hours promised. You work, you get a work order, you say yes. And so when it's time to get more consistent work for them, they go and do that, and then sometimes work a little bit for 𝐒𝐶. And I see them coming working overnights somewhere, and I see them spinny, and I see them tired, and I see them working too many hours, and I can almost call it. Where I'm like, okay, reel it back in. So that's been a frustration for me. Just because you know, I care and I want them to take it.
Yeah, we care and we see it happen, and everybody's on there. You know, on one hand, everybody's on their own journey. God's in control. I'm not in control. I'm going to do the next right thing. I'm going to be an example. I know you're going to do the next right thing. You're going to be a good example. And it's kind of like I'm the rock. You're the rock. And
I'm not a rock. And that's like I said in the beginning, like, it's so important that I don't become some like shiny bright example of recovery, because there are days I can't get out of bed still, right? There are days I still suffer with the disease of alcoholism. I just know the solution now. And so in order for me to sit across the table for someone with an ankle monitor on, who has lost their kids, who has felonies, who doesn't imagine them getting their life back together, I have to remember what it was like, right? And I have to share my stories of current struggle. And so I just said that it's important that people know, like, there's no like heavy hitters in Alcoholics Anonymous. We're all just you know what I mean?
Yeah. We're all in this. We all have struggles. That's part of being a human being.
Yeah.
And experiencing your feelings and walking through your feelings, right? Yeah. So from addiction to bright, shiny, and happy, what does that mean to you?
So first of all, you saw me, like, even it took about 5 years for me to even brighten up a little. Like, I struggled my first 5 years. And so a lot of that is when you get into recovery, even in the beginning of recovery for a lot of people, like, they start to like stand up taller and get a little brighter and like be able to get up in the morning, and you'll hear them be like, oh my God, I'm doing things that I haven't done in years. And so, what that means, that I get that a lot from my clients. They're like, God, how do you find such amazing people? And I'm like, they find each other. Like, I don't, you know, but they are bright, shiny, and happy because they've gotten a second chance at life, and they're not high or drunk. So as contract laborers go, which kind of has like this, like stereotypical, like, oh, you use contract. Well, mine are like bright, shiny, happy, grateful, willing, you know, have the tools of the program. So that's what gives them. You would think that it would be the opposite, but it's what gives them. It's what keeps the 𝐒𝐶 team in front, right? Is willingness and gratitude.
Mm-hmm.
Health. They're decently healthy, right? Because they're not partying at night or doing any of these things.
Right.
So that's where they come from. And a song. There's a song. Bright, shiny, happy people. I don't even remember. I heard it once and I was like,
how did you come up with that?
I switched the word and then took it.
How did you come up with that slogan?
I heard someone sing the song,
Uh-huh.
the REM song, and I was like, it's not bright, shiny, happy people in the song. It's something else, but
It's shiny, happy people.
Yeah. It's good. It works for us.
Yeah, no, it's awesome to have a tagline. Yeah. Okay, so if someone wants to learn more about you or more about working for you or getting a job for you, how can they find you?
They can go to Coffee Plantation from 4 to 7 on Wednesdays. They can go to 𝐒𝐷 by Emily. So that's 𝐸TCbyemily.com. Our website tells all about us and what we do, and people can apply there. And my phone number's on there. Or they can like my Facebook page. But the coffee shop is the fastest way. Like if someone's like, oh, I really want a job, going into the coffee shop's the fastest way to get on the roster. And we are hiring. Like I expected that we would be, like we'd have some work and the spring brides would want to get married in the winter, but I did not expect to get crushed. Like we are just as busy as we have been every other year, if not more so, which is awesome.
Yeah, tell me about that. What are you seeing as we're headed into the fall? Because normally as we head into the fall, things pick up for you, right? You're a little bit slower in the summer because we're in Arizona. It's really hot in Arizona. People typically aren't having lots of outside events in Arizona. And so now we've made it through the summer. We're working our way through this pandemic. What does the future look like for 𝐒𝐷 by Emily?
So like I said, we took a government contract in Wisconsin. And so we're still providing service staff just to the cafeteria on the base, which is a different scope of work than we normally do, but it's keeping people employed and making pretty good money. We have I think it's like 54-day event, which is a Christmas drive-thru. There's one in Glendale and there's one in Tempe, and it's like a big production. They do it every year, but my guesses are it's really gonna be huge this year because families still need to do wonderful things, right? But there's COVID. So I will put that information for that event on my Facebook page and on the 𝐒𝐷 by Emily Facebook page so people can do that. So we're staffing that, which is it's study work and it's fun and we're excited about that.
Creates culture.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The big events are on hold for sure. Like our galas for 500 people that because people use a lot of staff. Hopefully Barrett-Jackson will happen. Hopefully the Open will happen. I hope.
Yeah. What are they? I mean, what are the events limited to right now, or what are they opened up to right now?
I haven't heard a capacity number in a while, but I keep on hearing the number 50.
Oh, yeah.
Like most of the events are getting for 50, and they're in houses. It's just shifted a little bit. Weddings that were 200 are now 50, and then zooming people in from out of state.
Right. Yep. Okay. Well, what else would you like to share with the newcomer or the mom or the person that wants to find long-term recovery? What's your advice?
So I don't know where everybody else feels their feelings, but mine are always right here. And I remember in the beginning of recovery and still when I'm growing through something, like feeling like shattered glass, like totally shattered glass, like so shattered that I could hardly breathe. And so what I want to say to the newcomer is that I promise that goes away. And I promise that it gets better and that lonely, shattered feeling gets better. But we have to hold on long enough for God to get in there and heal it. And I have a journal entry at 9 months of sobriety that says, had I given up, I would have never known that this gets so much better.
Yeah.
So that's it.
Hold on. Okay, so one last question. What do you think is the importance of environment or the community, the people that you surround yourself with? So for the person that's early in recovery, should they go back to their, what are the potential repercussions if they go back to their old environment and hang out with their old friends?
I am a big fan of submerging yourself into the rooms of recovery. Like, the people that you get sober with will be in your life forever. Whether or not they slip and slide or go back out, they're still always going to have a huge place in your heart. I think that it's really, really important, that community. And at 𝐶, that is a huge part of what we do and a huge part of why people come back and work for us year after year. Because people are really just lonely and looking for connection, whether or not they're in and out of recovery. Like, people really need that, and they really need people that can identify with their pain. And so we cannot do this alone, for sure. Like, it's lonely if you're in a room of people. So if you're not around people, that's just it doesn't work. So I think it's one of the most important parts of recovery, for sure.
Yeah.
Find your people and stay close to them.
Find your people and stay close to them. It's about developing a new community, new environment, especially early on in recovery. My experience and what I see is that people that go back to their old community and their old environment end up going back to their old ways. It's just too easy.
Yeah.
It's like,
it's so much more than just putting the drink down. Like, when we come in, we're twisted. Everything's everybody else's fault. Like, all of the things that the steps help fix. So if you're talking out loud and you're processing through someone who is still out there, not in recovery, or will co-sign your bullshit, then the recovery process takes longer. Like, if you're around people in recovery that are like, hold on, let's look at it a different way. Maybe your mom's not answering the phone because you stole money from her over the last 5 years. Or maybe rather than, my mom's not, right? Like, getting a sober perspective on all of the things that you know what I'm saying? Like, sober.
Yeah, maybe your wife doesn't want to talk to you because you cheated on her multiple times. I mean, it's like,
that's absolute bitch. No, it's like,
yeah, but I'm sober now. It's like, yeah, but it
Totally.
takes some time. It takes a minute.
Yeah, that's a big one too. Like, and I get it, because the beginning of recovery is hard, but like, God, I have 90 days. I don't know what the problem is. Like, they're not going to get over it in 90 days.
Right.
Give them a minute, like a year. So all of that, being around people that will lovingly explain those things to you, is important.
Yeah.
So, sponsorship.
Emily, thank you so much. Everybody, thanks for listening. And 𝐒𝐶ByEmily.com is how you find Emily. Emily Sadler is her Facebook, her Instagram, or 𝐒𝐶 by Emily. Coffee Plantation every Wednesday from 4 to 7 p.m. If you'd like to interview for a position with 𝐒𝐶 by Emily, and if you'd like to get on her roster, as she said, we're headed into the fall right now, and things are picking up. We're getting through the pandemic. And if you'd like to work around people in recovery, you'd like to get yourself plugged in, then look her up. And thank you so much for listening. And thank you so much for your time, Emily. I really appreciate you.
Bye, guys.